and assisted by Lloyd. So take it away, guys. Thanks.
All right. Very quickly, I am Tina Dumas. I am the KM manager at Nossaman. And Lloyd?
I am Lloyd Auerbach. I'm a knowledge and research consultant for LexisNexis.
All right. Just in case you didn't know who we were.
Yeah, and other things. I'm other things too, as you'll see.
Yes. All right. In honor of NoCal's 42nd anniversary and in the tradition of many other law librarian presentations, we are presenting you today with 42 random, possibly helpful, and hopefully entertaining websites. Thank you to the originator of this format, Jenny Kanji, who's a former Lexis librarian rep. We'll be going through these rather quickly with just brief descriptions of each and only a few live demos, but we will share a list of links for later reference. So just sit back and relax, no need to take notes.
I'll just mention the link that's right there, tinyurl.com/42 sites, 42 minutes is the link to the list. You can download that in PDF or Word, and the passcode is just simply NoCal. All right. All yours, Tina.
Yes. No, that one's yours.
Oh, okay. I thought we had, that's right, you're right. All right, so since it's 42, I thought in honor of that, we should take possibly the most prevalent number, use of the number 42 in literature. That is Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the 5-part trilogy that he wrote so many years ago. And of course, 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, although we still don't know the question.
All right, so this site, thistothat.com, do you really need to know what is the best kind of adhesive to use to glue two items together? This site will tell you. I will mention the Glue of the Month blog, unfortunately hasn't been updated since 2003, but the rest of the information on the site is still really useful, and other pages are being updated, including the news section, which is really interesting, and has a recent article about an edible Band-Aid to hold your burrito together.
It could be a little sticky for people to eat. All right, so how many people are afraid of Ouija boards? This is the Museum of Talking Boards. It is one of the best sites online. You can find out about the history of the Ouija board, which actually goes back well before it was patented in the late 1800s. It's got a couple of great galleries of really creative uses of boards in terms of artwork, plus all the rip-off boards that were made after it was in fact patented by William Folds back in the late 1800s. It's kind of a cool thing. It also tells you how it works and what you should worry about.
All right, LunaPic. This is a completely free site for editing photos online. You can create collages, remove backgrounds, etc. There are a lot of great editing features. I think there's a Picasso effect. It's really kind of cool to take a look at. Because it's truly free, there's no login or account to create, so there's no way to save your project for later on the site itself, but you can always download it and then upload it again later for later editing. And just a bonus, two bonuses, two other really good free sites to check out where you can create a free or paid account are Canva and BeFunky, and those are part of the list as well.
I discovered this search engine a few months ago. I'm on a list of getting notices of new search engines, and U.com has become one of my kind of go-to websites, or I should say search engines in general. This was created with the idea that you should find everything you want generally in one spot without advertising, and U.com also provides summaries from those websites. So I just searched weird websites as an example, and you can see some of the suggestions that it's actually providing here. You can actually really get a good feel for what's good and what's not, but also they provide you some top images, top videos, all in one place, making it very easy to use. Additionally, you can make this your default search engine, and they're trying out other products now. You can do a 30-day free trial on something called YouWrite, where you choose the type of thing you would like to have written for you, could be a social media post, an email, and so on, some brochure information and so on. Type in a word or two or three, and it writes a really concise bit of information that it pulls from the web. And I've been playing with it for a little while during the free trial, and it's pretty amazing, especially for social media posts. Doesn't cost much, and I probably will bite the bullet here real soon.
All right, tineye.com. This is a really good online reverse image search. I'm sure you're probably all familiar with Google photo search as well, but this is another alternative if you don't want to go with the Google. TinEye does not store your photos, and there's a great compare feature to see if images have been cropped, resized, or manipulated if they're also available on the web somewhere. It also has browser extensions for Firefox, Chrome, Edge, and Opera.
All right, how many of us wanted to know what the Earth looked like 220 million years ago? Well, this is dinosaurpictures.org. It's their ancient Earth piece, and I'm going to actually stop sharing here for a moment. I forgot to share my screen. I'll do that instead. And that way I can switch over. I have just a really short live thing here that we'll go to. Here we go. So it is in motion, it is animated. You can actually jump to things like when the dinosaurs were extinct. What did the Earth look like 66 million years ago? Or when the first grass appeared 35 million years ago. It takes a little while for the Earth to rotate. There we go. So you can kind of look back in time. Here's what it looked like when we were around at first. Kind of a fun site to go to.
All right. This site was originally designed as a way to wild your attention or step away from the algorithms of social media. The creator of Weird Old Book Finder has automated searches for public domain books to satisfy your immediate gratification needs of reading the book immediately. And each search brings back only one book, so there's no need to be paralyzed by too many choices. A search for banned books brings back a US Supreme Court petition for writ from 1973, so not too old, but definitely in the public domain. When I tried my last name as a search term, which I will admit is a bit of a cheat, I got a book of the collected works of Alexander Dumas, Père, that included a very amusing drawing of him as well.
And I'll mention that this particular book you brought up, Tina, is Alexander Herman, the magician, who was incredibly famous towards the end of the 19th century, had a big impact on the world of magic. And speaking of another one of my interests, many of you know that I'm into chocolate heavily. So I wanted to introduce you to the Craft Chocolate TV YouTube channel. It's produced by the chocolate maker at Manoa Chocolate, which is some place that I discovered when I was in Hawaii in 2019. It's in Kailua, one of the best chocolate companies I've ever dealt with. I'm on their Chocolate of the Month Club. And they have produced and continue to produce these short bits on everything from the farming of chocolate and cacao to how it's made, how it's sold, how it's distributed. It's truly an education in itself, but really entertaining to take a look at. There's a short URL there to get to it a lot faster than the YouTube link.
The directory of open access journals is pretty self-explanatory from the name, which is great, but it's entirely open access journals and articles. You can see from this screenshot that I took, I think probably back in February or March, that they had over 12,000 journals and 7 million articles. So that's quite a lot. It's pretty amazing and very comprehensive.
All right. Well, some of you have heard me tell ghost stories before, and you might even notice on this Science Encyclopedia page that my name shows up as an entry. That's actually pretty recent. This is an encyclopedia online that is continually evolving, created and written by folks associated with the Society for Psychical Research in London, the oldest organization in the world that studies the paranormal in general. And it was developed for two reasons. One reason and one lucky thing that happened, if you want to call it lucky. Wikipedia is one of the worst sites for any information about a number of topics because of bias, heavy bias that they actually have. One of them happens to be parapsychology, and many of my colleagues have tried to even edit and correct their own bios that are there and are unable to because the folks running Wikipedia will not allow them to do that. So the Society for Psychical Research decided to do their own. And around the same time they made that decision, a long-term member of the society who had in his will years before bequeathed a small cottage to them, he passed away, and that small cottage brought them 750,000 pounds, the largest bequest the society ever had. So it has been developing this continually evolving science encyclopedia for anyone interested in good information about the paranormal.
All right, on a completely different topic, printfriendly.com. This is a way to print an ad-free version of a web page to PDF. One excellent use that I'm sure a lot of us use is printing newspaper articles for our users. So it's just a great way to just get rid of all of the ads. You will still get photos, usually photos and text of the article. It works for some sites that require logins, but not all of them. I will say it does not work on the Daily Journal, so don't even try it. I don't think anything does. Yeah, the resulting PDF includes the text and the photos.
And of course, there's that extension you can get for Google for Chrome to allow you to look at the reader view. But I think that also doesn't work on every site.
Right. I believe Print Friendly also has an extension as well.
Great. Right. So years ago, I worked before Lexis. I was working for, I should say in between Lexis and Lexis, I was working for Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in the library. And we use a number of different sources to pull documents, even though the library had access because it was a government site to pretty much everything, paid access. Carried this over to some work that I did with law firms. So Freefold PDF is for scientific articles, publications, which are not necessarily just the open access journal articles, because many authors who write for paid journals, for restricted journals, also get the right to put that article up on their own websites. So this will find full text articles in the sciences, humanities, and the arts, as long as it's free. As opposed to other sites which kind of limit that quite a bit. And again, they don't have to be open access journal sites. They can be the actual author sites for that matter.
All right, so BookFeed is a way to create an RSS feed listing for your favorite author to see when they're going to come out with new books and so forth. So all you have to do is put in the author's name, click add author, and then copy the feed into whatever feed reader is your favorite these days. I've been using Feedly lately, but there's a number of them out there.
Fake news, biased news, all of that's been going on for, well, since yellow journalism, actually. But today it's a real issue because there are different news outlets that have different biases, and we all know that. So All Sides was created years ago to provide you with typically all sides of a question. I got the screenshot a couple of days ago. And so they provide you with major issues in the news from the right, from the left, and these are from specific sites. You can see Fox News and CNN, and then from what's considered centric as well. That provides a kind of hopefully balanced view of that. It's a really great site just to look at today's news, the daily news, and to see what each side thinks of the other or where everybody's coming from. I tend to read the center stuff.
All right. Have you ever gone to a website that requires you to enter an email address in order to send a one-time validation code, but then you end up getting lots of spam from them? If so, you can now use this anti-spam tool to create an email that lasts only 10 minutes. There is an option to extend it another 10 minutes down there at the bottom. You see it says get 10 more minutes. And then once you've created the email, you've submitted whatever site and they send it to you, you just click on the inbox right above the countdown timer and check the incoming emails for whatever that validation code is, and then you can just forget about it.
So besides you.com, there may be other search engines out there that we don't hear too much about. Some people I know using DuckDuckGo to make sure nothing's being tracked, but there are other search engines, and there are search engines that refer to specific topics as well. So searchengineguide.com actually keeps up with relatively well with any new search engine or niche search engines that are out there. You take a look at that, you might want to explore it, take a look at some of the topical areas that they cover, one of which is lawyers. So you have very, very specific niches that will provide you with that. Plus, you can get some information about how search engine optimization works and some tips for that as well.
And here's search engines. Here's a specialized search engine just for blogs. It's blogsearchengine.org. One additional feature is that it does also find YouTube videos, so or YouTube results. So that's interesting. And currently their own blog on their website and their search tips are not working. But I did run a search the other day for my firm, Nosman, and I did find recent blog postings from my firm. So the search itself is working, even though their search tips section is not.
And you, of course, can go to u.com and ask for search tips for blogsearchengine.org and get other sites that provide you, or other blogs. You can even search that here for other blogs that give you tips. And there's a specialized blog archive for legal blogs as well. This is one I discovered not too long ago. This is for the blogs that don't cost anything or sources don't cost anything. And it does track articles. I ran this back in February, so you're seeing older dates. But it does give you some really good up-to-date kind of a running feed of what the latest top articles are, and allows you to search a variety of the blogs that are there. It'll give you a list of the blogs, so just click on the blog link in the upper right-hand corner as well.
All right, governmentattic.org. I find this site really fun. You might lose a little bit of time here. It's fair warning. It provides electronic copies of thousands of interesting federal government documents that were all obtained under the Freedom of Information Act. You can search or you can browse. Up at the top, they have FOIA logs, they have documents, they have links, etc. If you use the search engine, just note that it's powered by Google, so the search results will have some ads at the top. They are labeled, so you can just scroll through them. And a couple of really kind of interesting searches if you need to get started. One of them that I recommend is UFOs. Also, the paranormal is an interesting one. Or, based on today's theme, banned books.
Yeah, and I'll mention that, with the congressional hearings going on UFOs, folks are really tapping into the articles, the documents that are here quite a bit. You'll still see redaction on many of them. And interestingly enough, if you really look carefully for whether it's UFOs or you go to the government project that was called Stargate, which was the remote viewing project, you might find, as my colleagues have found, there can be 5 versions of the same document redacted by 5 different people, 5 different ways. And I know a colleague of mine for Stargate, who was involved with that, put together unredacted documents by combining the unredacted parts of all the documents. So people are doing that for a lot of redacted documents now. But let's go older. So I'm a big fan of old time radio and have been since I was a kid. My uncle was a newscaster in New York and also was a big fan of old time radio and taught courses on it. And this is a great site for free shows. This site has thousands. You can see the listing when I pulled this about 2 months ago, was over 111,000 episodes, over 4,000 series in a variety of genres. There are many sites you can go to where you are paying for a number of these shows, but these are completely free. There's a search engine that allows you to search by series if you wanted to do that. You can see the recent additions. It includes news episodes or news shows, and some of the more interesting ones I've listened to included Churchill's his statement to the nation about right before World War II, the broadcasts around Pearl Harbor. Anything from World War II is really interesting to listen to, but it goes back much further than that for some of them. And there are more recent things because people are still doing dramatic radio and some news that kind of fits the bill here.
All right, we are going to go live for this one as well. This is River Runner. It uses USGS data and an API to visualize the path of a rain droplet from any point in the contiguous US to its end point. So usually that's the ocean, but sometimes it's the Great Lakes or another inland water feature. It'll find the closest river stream flow line coordinate to where you click, or you can enter a location and in the search box, and then it animates it, as we're seeing now, along the flow line's downstream path to wherever it's going to end up. And then it shows you the entire route, the overview of the entire route.
Glad that worked.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes I just want to listen to radio from somewhere else. And some of you may know about radio.garden. That you can also pull it up on your phone. There's even an app for it, where you just use the globe of the earth, you zero in on a country or region, you zero in even further, just keep clicking down, and you'll eventually see these country maps that have these dots. And if you zero in a little bit further, I did on London and New York, so there's London on one side, New York on the other. You can see a list of the stations, and you can kind of scroll through them and decide which one you want to listen to. As long as the radio station is also webcasting, it can be a broadcast station. There are also some internet-only radio stations, even though they're not really broadcasting as radio that way, but it covers all genres, covers the news. I sometimes listen to BBC News by just jumping down to this area. And I've heard stations from all over the world at this point, and you got to get a feel for the music, how it works, even local music in different parts of the world with this.
All right, a little bit more about nature. So if you have allergies, or it's wildfire season, or if you want to know if you need an N95 mask for something other than COVID, this site is great. It's airnow.gov. It's provided by the US EPA, Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. And as you can see, this is again captured in February for Fresno. So the air quality was pretty good back then. I'm not sure what it is today. I haven't checked it today.
I'm feeling a little allergy thing. I have a feeling of at least the pollen count's high right now.
Yeah.
All right. Outgrowth of my chocolate, or chocolate came from my interest in food. And a couple of years ago, I discovered this site, foodtimeline.org. It's a really, really cool interactive timeline going back, as you can see, even to places where we don't even necessarily have dates. If you click on any of those links, you get a kind of full history of that particular food item or how that substance has been used. And it provides some really in-depth information. This is the index as it happens. And there are occasional recipes. The further in you go, of course, more recent, you'll see more recipes. But you can see from 10,000 BC, from Mesopotamia, you'll find flour, bread, and soup. And I can't recall when, I think it was around 3000 BC, that they found beer recipes that were actually used at one point by a microbrewery in Berkeley a number of years ago. They were using an ancient Babylonian beer recipe.
All right, say more about food. Don't print the food blogger's life story, just print the recipe using this website. If you find a great recipe on the web and want to capture it for later use or print it out, you can use this, especially if you don't want to read or print out the blogger's 30-page missive on lemons. You just copy and paste the original URL from the blog post, wherever the recipe is, and paste it into this site, and it prints just the recipe, just like the name says.
Well, sometimes I don't feel like reading deeply. So I found this cartoon encyclopedia of wisdom. So you want just kind of encapsulation about certain topics. There's one for libraries, in fact, has some really cool cartoons to it. But you can see the areas. It doesn't cover law specifically, but there are a lot more subset topics in each of these categories. And everything is usually on one web page with a number of cartoons that are there, pretty much giving you, as they say here, everything that there is to know about that subject very, very quickly.
All right. And then you may or may not know that there's been a recent rash of broken McDonald's ice cream machines. I know this is just tragic for some people, but the creator of this site used his time wisely during the pandemic to map out in real time which ones are working and which ones are not. So you can just come to mcbroken.com and navigate to whatever location you're in to see if the local McDonald's shake machine or ice cream machine is working. And there's been a bunch of controversy about the machines and the machine manufacturers and the repairs and everything. I think there was a lawsuit filed recently in March. So by all means, use your new favorite search engine, u.com, right, to search for more information about all the controversy.
And if you folks watch The Daily Show, you might have heard a story the other day about the in Russia, they're taking over a McDonald's and kind of changed the labeling on it. And Trevor Noah was talking about how they're making their own version of different things, hamburgers and everything like that. Well, he also mentioned that they made sure that the ice cream machine was broken, just like every other McDonald's. All right. So I think it was Greg Lambert who pointed me to this book, and then I found that there actually was a blog. For those of us interested in comic books, we're longtime comic book readers. The term multiverse, which has been tossed around a lot more in the movies and certainly in television shows over the last few years, it actually goes back to the 1930s and 40s and was heavily used in comic books starting around the 1960s. So comic books actually were ahead of the game. Science fiction was way ahead of the game in popular usage of the term. And this covers how the law applies or does not apply to superheroes. The book covers that. There are actual blog articles that talk about different aspects of this. If you want to know why it is that Batman, or whether Batman needs to go into court to testify, and what happens when they ask him what his name is, this is a great book to find out how the law applies to him, as well as how it applies to other superheroes who leave a lot of damage behind in their wake. Although most cities seem to have superhero insurance at this point.
All right, this site is for the birds, or rather the birders. It was created by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Yes, the same ultimate university that brought us the Legal Information Institute. So if you're a new or experienced birder, you can find more birds at this site. You can keep track of your bird lists, photos, and sounds. You can explore latest sightings from around the world and contribute to science and conservation. I did get a personal question from a friend, actually, and I thought this site would be great. The question was, does the male northern flicker have a red mustache when it's a juvenile? We know it does as an adult, but what about as a chick? I did try to find that information at this site and I didn't find it. But as a bonus, I'll give you a bonus site to look at. You can also look at birdsandblooms.com, which is where I did find the information. I did confirm that the male northern flicker has a red mustache when it's a juvenile.
It sounds like a question they would have asked in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Exactly.
Okay, one of my other favorite sites to go to every once in a while. This should be familiar to everybody, even though you may not realize it. If you remember back in the 90s and early 2000s, and you go to the supermarket checkout stand, and there are all those tabloids. There was one that was black and white till about the mid 2000s. That's the Weekly World News. You see that it says the world's only reliable news. It had headlines like famed psychic's head explodes in ESP experiment, and Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden get gay married. Those were actual headlines. They had a picture of the Clintons adopting an alien baby and the Reagans adopting an alien baby. And of course, Elvis is still alive, as we all know. He is hiding in Las Vegas, pretending to be an Elvis impersonator. That's all from the Weekly World News. The website has continued actually since well before the paper went out. It's not too long ago, it was taken over by new management, and they are working towards getting the paper out again. It was a favorite publication of comedians and disc jockeys. And in the 1980s, and then again in the 90s, 60 Minutes did stories about the tabloids. And one of the pieces they did about the tabloids was to interview the editor of the Weekly World News at the time. And as they're walking around the editorial area, the commentator asks, "So where do you get your stories from?" And the editor very solemnly looks at him and nods his head and he says, "We make them up." Which is true, but it's a really fun thing to read, as you can see.
All right, findagrave.com. This is pretty self-explanatory, but it's a website where you can look up graves. It is not very Google-like, which is actually good. So you can use all these different fields to narrow down your search. Really helpful for looking for family members in a genealogy project or actually work related. We have an eminent domain group at our firm, and we use this for legal research projects at the firm. And I want to shout out to the Nossaman librarians for letting me know about this site. Thank you all for that. Just one quick note is that it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Ancestry.com. So,
And of course, it doesn't cover everybody because they haven't been everywhere.
right.
But talk about going somewhere. During the pandemic, I was a little bored. And not that I was traveling to historical sites all over the world, but I did find that there were some museums that had their own tours. And I found this one site, which provides you with a full 360-degree tour of various historical sites around the planet. It's a really interesting site to go to, and it'll suck your time up for a little while if you're a little bored. Very, very interesting to take a look at.
All right, emojipedia.org. This it's a site where you can search or you can browse for emojis and their definitions. So we'll actually tell you what that emoji means. The search results that you see on the right hand side here, it's kind of small, but I ran a search for seedling, and you can see that it shows the different versions, the Apple version versus the Google version versus Samsung and Microsoft. So that's kind of interesting to see which way the different platforms display. You know, some of the categories are really interesting. There's smileys and people, obviously, animals and nature, food and drink, symbols, or flags.
So I have been in the magic world since around 1980. And of course, Harry Houdini is big in the magic world. I haven't been performing through the pandemic, but I will be again soon. Years ago, when I met somebody at the Magic Castle down in Los Angeles, who was the inheritor of one of Harry Houdini's scrapbooks. He kept meticulous scrapbooks of all sorts of things he collected in his life. He had a lot of different interests, as it happens. One of them was on spiritualism. And I was able to spend time with the scrapbook, which eventually was turned over after Manny died, was turned over to a university along with other Houdini scrapbooks. They've all been digitized. They are really incredible snapshots of history. Houdini found old newspapers. He clipped articles physically from newspapers as early as the 1700s on all sorts of topics. So if you're interested in history at all, whether it is spiritualism, magic, or just the world in general, this is a great place to go. You click through, you get the number of the different scrapbooks, and you can pick your topic to take a look through it.
All right, so mealtrain.com. This is a mostly free site where you can plan, organize meals for a friend after a birth, surgery, illness, etc., friend or family. You can also use it to sign up for potlucks. There is one version that's a little bit more complicated that has a basic one-time fee of $10 that allows you to do a lot more with it. But mostly it's a free site, and it's really great. Somebody at my firm used it to organize meals for an employee whose son was going through surgery, and it was just really nice to be able to contribute that way online. And I just had to sign up and pay for a meal. Great. A couple of other bonus sites that are similar to this that are really helpful: signupgenius.com, which has free and paid options, and groupcarpool.com as well. And these are both on the list, so don't worry about taking notes. And we were actually thinking of using Group Carpool 2 years ago for the NoCal Institute before it was canceled. So.
I don't know about you, but I always look forward to a nice drink at the end of the day, or maybe the end of the week. One of my colleagues on my team, she and her husband during the pandemic had like a drink of the month and a drink of the week, that they would pick an old recipe from somewhere and recreate that and just kind of concoct that as mixologists do today. the term mixologist, of course, bartenders are not bartenders anymore. If they know what they're doing, they're mixologists, even though that's not a very old term and usage in that industry. It was actually coined by a guy named Jack Tiano, who founded the American Bartender Schools in the 1960s and 70s. So this is a site where you can find old cocktail books with recipes going back, as you can see, to 1753. You may not be able to find all the ingredients. You might have to kind of replace certain things, but there's some really, really cool drink recipes and some really horrid ones in these books as well.
So going back to travel, when you're ready to go on a travel adventure again, if you want to go by bus, train, or ferry, Wanderoo is a really great website to search the best way to get there by, those modes of transportation. They do also have flights and rental cars and hotels, but their main focus is really on, mostly buses and trains, but also ferries.
All right, don't read the text. So go to the invisiblegorilla.com videos and watch the video. This is a selective attention test for you. There's actually several of them. This is very famous in the psychology world as well, where it really tests your selective attention, how much you pay attention to things. If you're familiar with this particular one, then choose one of the others and don't read the caption. Just go ahead and watch these and then read what you're supposed to have been looking for. They're very, very interesting, very entertaining, great to show your friends and to see who really is able to pay attention. But it says a lot about how we pay attention and what we actually attend to in our perceptions when things are right in front of us.
All right. Swimply.com. Have you always wanted a backyard pool but can't afford it or don't want the maintenance hassle? You can use Swimply to rent someone else's backyard pool for an afternoon or a day. It's like Airbnb for pools.
Back to food. So many of you are probably familiar with Atlas Obscura. They started a page not too long ago called Gastro Obscura, and that focuses on the unusual things around food around the world. This is a page that it has different stories. This is actually back from February. There's some newer topics that are out there, of course, right now, and you can search it as well. But it covers foods, places, all sorts of experiences. And they did publish a book not too long ago called Gastro Obscura, which is I picked it up immediately as soon as I saw that it came out. It's a really fascinating guide to the local foods and unusual foods of places all over the world. And I thought, well, we thought that it'd be good for me, might as well throw in my YouTube channel. So many of you know, again, the ghost thing is connected to me. I've been doing this for a long time. I've done a lot of television and many of my TV appearances are here on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Lloyd Auerbach. Just go to videos. I'm going to be uploading, I've just been digitizing a whole bunch of others as well, some of the earlier ones. So you'll actually get to see Lloyd's evolving beard and lack of beard because I have some of my earlier appearances here as well.
All right, if you're counting, this is our 43rd site out of 42 in the spirit of Douglas Adams's Hitchhiker Guide series, which is a trilogy in 5 parts. If you don't know the whole story behind 42, and Lloyd alluded to it earlier, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 42 is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. The answer was first calculated by the supercomputer Deep Thought after 7.5 million years of thought. This shocking answer resulted in the construction of an even larger supercomputer named Earth, which was tasked with determining what the question was in the first place. And it should take another 10 million years to find out.
That is, if Earth is not destroyed in a hyperspace bypass.
Exactly. So this site has some great quotes on it.
So that's it for us. Please, I think we did this in just under 42 minutes. Again, tinyurl.com/42 sites, 42 minutes. You can download the pages. I just uploaded them this morning. Again, there's a Word document with the list of the sites and the bonus sites, and also a PDF if you prefer that. The passcode is NoCal. It should ask you for that, but there are unlimited downloads. I didn't restrict that at all. So enjoy yourselves, play with these a little bit, and feel free to send us some unusual sites of your own, because maybe next year we'll need to do 43 or more. So
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tina and Lloyd. I really appreciate it. Any questions for Tina and Lloyd? Any any sites that you jumped out at you that you need more info on right now?
I don't have any questions, but I hereby vote. I motion to have this session done at every single NoCal in Spring Institute because it's awesome.
Yep. Every time. Every time.
Fun.
Nice way to commemorate Jan Casey.
it's good spending work hours doing this.
Definitely.
Put the URL into the chat so we can copy paste it out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
will do.
Lloyd and Tina, that was phenomenal. I loved the radio specific one. Have you guys heard of radio?
Yes, I have. I've used that one too.
For everybody or anybody who doesn't know, it's radio with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra O's. And it is basically a radio time machine or a musical time machine. You can go to anywhere on the globe, so Czechoslovakia, and you can get disco music from the 80s because they're usually behind a little bit. But yeah, it's a really interesting website. And when you told me about that, your other website, it completely brought that to mind.
Yeah, I saw that one a while back. I guess it wasn't sticking in my mind. Otherwise, I might have used that one. But I had just, not too long before discovered Radio Garden and been using it. So thanks, April.
Mhm.
And you put in the password too, because I've already
Sure.
forgotten it.
That should be easy to remember. It's just simply NoCal.
I put in NoCal 2022.
Okay, just NoCal, just NoCal.
Just NoCal.
It'll work forever. And that way, in case it's 2023, it's still NoCal.
All righty. Well, once again, we find ourselves at the end of another Spring Institute.
Oh, we
I
have
just
a
wanted-
raffle.
Oh, we do? Oh, that's right. We do.
We do have a raffle. So we actually have a raffle of 3 $25 Amazon gift cards, courtesy of Lexus. So I am going to put Lloyd on the spot. I have, after removing all the people who shouldn't be receiving gift cards, I have 25 names. So if you can give me 3 numbers between 1 and 25.
13, 7, and 25.
13, 7, and 25. Okay, so that is 13 is Michaela Avila. I think that's our
guest.
our
esteemed
guest. Yay!
It's going to be a law librarian for sure now.
So that was 13, and you said 7.
7,
That's Joel. And 25.
Yep.
The last one, Michael Daw. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So again, I will be reaching out to all 3 of you with the information for the gift cards that Lexus so kindly donated for our event. And back to you, Jared.
Yeah, so again, just wanted to thank my committee members again. Wanted to thank all the presenters on, again, the librarian and vendor side. Could not have done it, obviously, without any of you. Really appreciate it. These sessions were recorded and they will be available at some point, probably in the near future-ish. So be on the lookout for those. And if you have any follow-up questions about the materials, the presentations, please feel free to reach out. And I will do my best to answer those for you. So without further ado, I will give you back the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.